Welcome to Lesson 33 of EFT Tapping with A Course in Miracles. You can watch Lesson 1 for a description of how all this works. So Lesson 33, there is another way of looking at the world. This is a beautiful one for EFT because when we process things, we often naturally experience a cognitive shift where we perceive a situation differently than we did before because the emotional charge around it has changed. So this is one where we're now up to a full 5 minutes as far as the practice periods for the morning and the evening. So in the interest of your time, I think what would be great to do is actually do this while tapping for 5 minutes. So when you do this video, you will have done your morning or evening, and then you just have to do it again at the respective time. You can even watch the video again and do it. So we'll do this exercise sort of as a tapping. So we will start with a setup statement. So starting on the side of the hand, repeating after me. Even though things in the world upset me, I choose to be open to the idea that there is another way of looking at the world. Even though things in this world and my inner world can disturb my peace, I choose to really open up to this lesson that there is another way of looking at the world. Even though there are things in the world and my inner world that seem to generate all sorts of reactions, I choose to take on this lesson, this idea that there is another way of looking at the world. Okay, so just tap on the points, and now just glancing around you for a bit, repeating while tapping, there is another way of looking at the world. There is another way of looking at the world. And now close your eyes, looking at your inner thoughts, doing your best to keep a healthy distance. Keep tapping, repeat the idea. There is another way of looking at the world. There's another way of looking at the world. Now, I'll just keep guiding you as the practice suggests to alternate, so tap anywhere you like, and I'll say, okay, let's open our eyes now, glancing around what we perceive as the outside world. Repeat the idea. There is another way of looking at the world. There is another way of looking at the world. There is another way of looking at the world. Reminding that it's just a casual glance as suggested. And now with, quote, equal casualness, keep tapping wherever you like. Close your eyes now. And looking at your inner world of images and thoughts. Again, we're not being instructed to conjure up specifically upsetting things, just casually seeing what comes up. And let's repeat the idea. There is another way of looking at the world. There is another way of looking at the world. Noticing the distinction being made that there's an inner or an outer world when we close our eyes or open our eyes, but we're being asked to see them as the same. So we're using the same statement even as our eyes are closed, looking at this inner world. Casually observing your thoughts. Let's repeat it again. There is another way of looking at the world. Now open your eyes. Casually, unhurried, looking around you. Not trying to look for anything particularly upsetting, just everything you see, taking it in. And let's repeat. There is another way of looking at the world. There is another way of looking at the world. There is another way of looking at the world. There is another way of looking at the world. Now closing your eyes. Looking casually at this inner world of thoughts and images. Maybe there's body sensations, whatever it might be that's coming into your awareness. Keep tapping and let's repeat this idea. There is another way of looking at the world. There is another way of looking at the world. There's another way of looking at the world. Open your eyes again. And just notice now there's, again, images. Things that you are perceiving. We're just calling this outside world. And repeating the idea while you keep tapping. There is another way of looking at the world. There is another way of looking at the world. Close your eyes. Notice that it's also images, thoughts, ideas, sounds. There is another way of looking at the world. There is another way of looking at the world. Okay, eyes open. Now let's repeat after me, EFT tapping style. Here we go. And I appreciate myself. I just did 5 minutes of powerful meditation. Noticing any reactions or judgments about myself or how I did it. Just letting that go and appreciating myself. And I'm asked as frequently as possible to do shorter practice periods where I repeat the idea. There is another way of looking at the world. And when something disturbing happens, noting that could be in my mind or a seemingly exterior event, quote, the instant you are aware of distress, I will say, there is another way of looking at this. There is another way of looking at this. I will repeat that several times as needed. Closing my eyes if it helps. Appreciating myself for taking this on. Okay, take a breath. Yeah, congratulations. You just did 5 minutes of focused meditation in the style of the lesson. I'm curious if you found, as I have, that when I'm doing it this way, obviously I have a camera on me, so I can't just stop and quit, that I am pretty sure previous times I did this, I was not actually doing the length or the frequency specified, but I'm finding that in this context, I am definitely doing that. I hope you're finding that. Hope you're finding some value out of this. Let me know any questions, comments, feedback, and I will see you on the next lesson for lesson 34. See you then.